This is a fantasy football update for Thursday, November 14th. If you missed the rankings breakdown show, it's out on the network right now, so sub to that. And the rankings cheat sheet and injury cheat sheet is down in the show notes right now, fully updated for you. Thursday Night Football, the Eagles are at home, 3.5-point favorites against the Washington Commanders. Brian Robinson has been lifted off of the injury report, so he is going to be a full go. He has moved up in the rankings from 32 to number 27. Austin Eckler moves down from 22 to 24. I still see more passing in this game. They'll try to establish the run, but if the spread indicates anything, Philly should jump out to a lead, and there will probably be more passing, which means more Austin Eckler on the field than normal in the split that you would generally see from Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. Obviously, Robinson, a higher degree of scoring a touchdown by getting the goal line carries. So if you think that Washington keeps this competitive or doesn't fall behind in this game, then you can boost up Brian Robinson ahead of Austin Eckler if that is your preference. Underdog picks. I gave out one on the ranking show before everything was fully out. That was A.J. Brown and Zach Ertz over receiving yards for Brown and over receptions for Zach Ertz. That is the official play for the show. And as I mentioned, if you use code Mayo right now at Underdog, you will receive a Jalen Hurts free pick to add to that to boost it up to 6-1. Now, if you want to get a bit riskier, I have a larger one. Now, the more fantasy props are available. So we're going to go with Saquon Barkley higher than 12.5 receiving yards, Jaden Daniels lower than 0.5 interceptions, so a clean game from Daniels. And then the other two, Zach Ertz and A.J. Brown, hires. If you add Jalen Hurts to that, it takes it from 10-1 up to 20-1 if you use code Mayo as a new customer and get that free pick and even a bonus one for the weekend. These ones just got dropped, so I jumped on the ones that I liked right away. Obviously, I'll have more on the weekend during the rankings update show on Saturday, but Taysom Hill lower than 28.5 rushing yards against the Browns. Cooper Rush lower than 2.5 rushing yards on Monday Night Football against Houston. And then Audric Estime lower than 55.5 rushing yards against the Atlanta Falcons. It seems like a good spot for him, but as I broke down in the ranking show, if Atlanta does jump up in this game, you're not going to see a lot of Estime rushing the ball because he's basically unused during passing downs. Bills and Chiefs injury update, because there's a lot going on in that game, and it's an important game. It's the biggest game of the year so far. Amari Cooper has returned to limited practice. No guarantee that he's going to play in this game, but at least it's a positive step for him getting back on the field on Sunday. As we already know, that Keon Coleman has been ruled out. Dalton Kincaid is not practicing. I do not expect him to play. Therefore, Dawson Knox will be thrust into a starting role. He is ranked as tight end number 13 for the week in the half-point PPR rankings. Again, find all the rankings down in the show notes. Right now, it's all fully updated. On the Chiefs side of the ball, Isaiah Pacheco has been taken off of injured reserve. He is designated to practice. Very unlikely he plays in week 11 or even week 12, maybe week 13, 14 for Isaiah Pacheco. Scan your waiver wire just in case someone had dropped him. It looks like he's going to return before the fantasy playoffs, which is a huge boost for your fantasy team if you've been missing him and you're still in the hunt. Speaking of Kareem Hunt, wouldn't expect him to be used too much, probably the second week after Pacheco actually returns to the field. And Juju Smith-Schuster has returned to limited practice for the Chiefs this week, so I would expect him to play this week against the Buffalo Bills. More wide receiver injury news. T. Higgins has returned to limited practice. I expect him to play on Sunday Night Football against the Chargers. We need to wait for more information because that is a later game. You don't want to get into a situation like with Nico Collins last week where you have to wait, or at least don't have a contingency plan in place should Higgins not play. He's wide receiver number 21 this week. And Michael Pittman has returned to full practice for the Colts. Obviously, Anthony Richardson starting for the Colts against the Jets this week. It's never great news. Listen, Pittman is banged up. He hasn't been good all year. Now Anthony Richardson is back. He's outside the top 50 in wide receiver. The only wide receiver on the Colts you probably want to play is Josh Downs. Other notes, no Najee Harris on Wednesday at practice with that ankle injury that removed him from the game last week from the Commanders. I've bumped up Jaylen Warren to 21 in the running back rankings. Najee down to number 30, but it's still no lock that Najee Harris is going to play this weekend against the Ravens. I still like the split for Warren better because the rush defense for the Ravens is quite good, so more passing that generally leads to more Warren on the field. Tank Bigsby did not practice for the Jacksonville Jaguars. As mentioned before, Anthony Richardson is starting for the Indianapolis Colts. Additionally, Gardner Minshew is going to start for the Las Vegas Raiders. It was initially reported that Desmond Ridder was going to play. That's not the case. It now seems like Gardner Minshew is going to be under center for Vegas at Miami this week. Van Jefferson did not practice with a quad injury for the Steelers. Mike Williams is probably going to end up getting a lot more snaps if Jefferson can't go. Probably Austin as well. You get a little bump up for him. Isaiah Likely returned to limited practice this week for the Baltimore Ravens. He's like 50-50 to play with that hamstring injury, so keep an eye on him. Marshawn Lloyd was activated from injured reserve for the Packers. Don't really care about that. Trevor Lawrence has been ruled out against Detroit. Mac Jones will start for Jacksonville, and Cedric Wilson returned to practice on a limited basis for the Saints, which could cut into either Tipton or even potentially Marcus Valdez-Scantling should Wilson be able to see the field this week. That will do it for the Thursday update. I'll return with a full rankings, injury, underdog, and DraftKings update on Saturday on the Pat Mayo Experience. And again, if you missed the rankings breakdown, the video is out on the channel right now, and it's out on the Pat Mayo Experience feed as the part 2 of the Best Bet show with Cam Stewart and Rob Pizzola, which was a fun show. I would go check that out right now. All right?
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!